start. So, hi everyone, thank you for coming to our talk, Crossy Road, A Whale of a Time. Please remember to turn off your phones so that we don't hear any Crossy Road notifications. I'm Andy Sum, I'm 24 years old and I'm from Melbourne, Australia. So I've been making games since I was about 9 years old, and I run a one-person company called Jigsaw, where I've got a couple of games on Steam. And I also like to participate in game jams, where I make experimental and artistic games.
And I'm Matt Hall. I'm a lot louder than Andy, apparently, according to my microphone. I'll talk a little quieter. I've been making games since I was 8 years old, beating Andy by 1 year. And I've been making games professionally for the last 15 years. I went independent in 2008. I worked at a number of Melbourne-based studios, largely work-for-hire studios, and I formed a company called ClickTalk. And there I was a one-man band company for many years, creating as many aspects of the games as I could, except for music, for which I have absolutely no talent. And most of my time during that era was spent working from my parents' sheep farm in a remote location of Victoria. And Crossy Road is actually my fourth #1 game on the App Store. And Ben Weatherall, who's not here, is our enormously talented artist, also from Melbourne, who I got to know back in 2012 after I saw his work on a Melbourne-based game jam. And I was happy to forego a little bit of my work. I'm not that great an artist, and Ben's way better than me. We've been working on a title called Deck War, which I do hope to release one day. Crossy Road has kind of gotten in the way of that. And while I was looking for a tool to do 3D art prototyping, I discovered a tool called Cubicle, and I happened to show Ben that tool while doing a game jam, and he picked it up and ran with it, and he's been making voxel art with it ever since. Yep.
So, who here has not heard of Crossy Road? Wow, that's actually pretty good, thanks. So this is a game, which we all know. And we want to take you through the development process as we lived it. So during the first section, we're going to be talking about how we made the game, the thoughts behind it, and some of the big design decisions. And in part 2, Matt's going to attempt to bore you with all the financial roller coaster that we've been riding since release, including the big reveal of our revenue to date.
Yeah, so talks with revenue, they were some of the most valuable ones I heard when I first started going to conferences, and this was a way of, paying back. We promised to do the talk before we knew how much money we made, so maybe this is a bad decision, but we're going to do it anyway.
So Crossy Road started off as a quick project that Matt and I were going to knock out in a few weeks before we moved back to our main projects, which is yet to happen still. Matt and I have been looking to work on a project together for about 9 months or so, and I didn't really want to work on a physics supermarket shopping simulator called Shelf Life.
No, and some of yours were quite questionable as well, but we eventually found something we wanted to work on together. Yeah.
So very early on, Matt had been meditating on this idea of why was Flappy Bird so popular?
Yeah.
And looking at Flappy Bird's popularity would be a whole nother talk in itself. But there's a few key factors that stand out. So there's a purity in Flappy Bird's score system. You can tell exactly how good someone is just by hearing their score. And when people get a really good score, they want to share the game with friends and challenge them to beat their score. And Flappy Bird was also very popular with YouTubers. I think it really took off when PewDiePie played it. And this sort of phenomenon started these school ground conversations of, oh my God, have you played Flappy Bird? So probably over 1,000 other developers had tried their clone of Flappy Bird, but we didn't want to make the same game again. We wanted to make something in the spirit of Flappy Bird rather than just recreate it. So when we said we wanted to make the next Flappy Bird, we really wanted to make a phenomenon. So after 6 months of meditating on the notion of creating Flappy Bird, Matt suddenly had this magical shower idea moment where he decided to combine Flappy Bird with Frogger in a one-touch game. And we also, thought about other games like Dota 2, Skylanders, Disco Zoo.
Yeah, there's a lot of influences in the title.
Yeah. And when Matt approached me with this idea of an endless Frogger, I said I'd actually worked on something similar back in 2011. I got quite far through prototyping a game, but I just never released it because it wasn't good enough. And this is what it looked like. It was called Chicken Dash, and it was 2D, and it had some of the same gameplay elements as Crossy Road. It was endless, it was procedurally generated, it had trains, logs, cars, lily pads, and I got so far with it that I even commissioned custom sound effects. So that train sound effect that you hear in Crossy Road is actually taken directly from this, and it's recorded from a British railway station. So initially we only wanted to spend 6 weeks on the game. Both Matt and I had other projects going on at the time, and we didn't want to distract ourselves from those.
Yeah, just 6 weeks. Yeah.
But because of this short time frame, we were happy to take big risks. Because if we failed, that meant that we would only waste a fraction of our lives and not, years. So this appetite for risk meant that we could experiment in all areas of the game. And this is really important because, since we didn't care that if we failed, we had the opportunity to try new free-to-play concepts and make a game that we enjoyed. So we began work on a prototype for Crossy Road back in July. It was called Roadkill Simulator 2014. And
that was my title.
Yeah. I spent a couple of weeks working on the initial movements with these red blocks for cars, and then I was showing Matt the progress as I went along. And it was a very iterative process. Direction of the game and the game feel came together quite quickly. And we probably went against most of the development rules in that we didn't show the game to anyone until it was really far through development. And when we did finally show people, they wouldn't give the phone back. So this is a pretty good first look at showing that we had something special. So a lot of people ask, how do Matt and I work together? And during this whole development process, Matt and I actually never met up. So Matt lives in the...
We didn't even video call.
Yeah, Matt lives in the country, and I live in the suburbs about 2 hours apart.
Yeah.
So we talked on Skype every day, and we used version control to work on the game together.
Yeah, we both sort of did similar work. Like people ask who did what, and we both sort of just combined to whatever job we felt like doing that day. Now I'd had experience with mobile stuff before, so I tended to take some of the more painful jobs while Andy had the free ride. So we're both pretty independent, and we do everything ourselves on our own projects. And I'd done that for so long, I was actually a bit apprehensive about working with Andy at first, which is why the idea of a 6-week project was probably a pretty good one. But it was actually a really positive experience, once we'd start to work together and we realised we were actually quite similar people. And what also really helped is we both had equal stake in the game, and so one couldn't necessarily overrule one another. And we treated each other with a lot of respect throughout development, even though Andy is really a lot younger than me. And we never crushed one another's ideas. Well, maybe once, and then we just did that once. Yeah. It was a really good project together. Yeah. As I said previously, I've worked with Ben on Deck War, and he did all the art with Cubicle. So he was making these voxel creatures all year long, and I really wanted to make a game with them. And so after we started making Crossy Road, it was a good fit almost straight away. So that's what the prototype looks like on the left, and that's Ben's early art on the right. So the difference between those two photos was probably about 2 days of development time. It very quickly turned into what it looks like today. Yeah. It only required minor adjustments, really. Yeah, it was... I think Ben worked on the project for about 2 weeks total. It was pretty amazing. Yeah. So at this stage, we actually didn't know how we wanted to monetize the game other than, well, we knew we wanted to make it free. That was really important, that we wanted, as I said, we wanted to make a phenomenon, and you're not going to make a paid game phenomenon anymore. And we also wanted players to play over a long period of time, which is sort of the antithesis of a throwaway arcade title. So, and we also knew we wanted players to share what they were doing with their friends. And we actually have a Skype log of ourselves at one point saying, if we just make a game that's really popular and makes no money, we'll still be happy. Right, Andy? No. Yeah.
So although we designed the gameplay together, I ended up getting to do lots of the fun implementation while Matt was stuck doing boring tasks like UI design, SDK implementation and making builds.
Yeah, Andy didn't have an iPad the entire project. He made me do all the builds, which I
right
thought was...
the end.
Yeah, he bought one after he released. Yeah.
So very early in the game, very early on in development, the game started to feel quite strong, which gave us this momentum to finish it as quickly as we could.
Yep.
And with each new element we added, the game felt better and better, as it was an iterative process, as I mentioned before. So, for example, we wanted to echo that feeling of immediate danger that Flappy Bird has, that you can die at any moment. So
from the very first
tap.
Yeah.
Yep. And the way the screen scrolls upward in Crossy Road gives you this sort of sense of healthy anxiety that you need to keep jumping forward. And we spent a long time tuning the difficulty curve too, making the game subtly more difficult the further and further you go.
Actually, you did most of the work on that, and I actually I tried not to play the game for a while, and then I came back, and then...
I think it was about two main iterations where I did one chunk and showed it to you, and you said,
it's too hard.
And then it made it a bit easier, And then probably one of the last bits was the coins. When we added the coins in, even with nothing to buy, they were just really addictive to pick up. Just felt compelled to have this, risk reward.
Yeah, that was one of the really big days where it really felt like it was working. Yeah.
And another one of the big decisions was whether it should be one tap or swipe. So Crossy Road started off as a one tap game like Flappy Bird, but even though we made a good attempt,
we lasted for quite a while that way.
Yeah, we still just couldn't get it to work. It never felt quite right. You never felt like you were fully in control of your character. So we tried swipe controls next, swiping in 4 directions to move around.
We? You mean me?
You implemented them. I probably came up with the idea. And we designed the levels around the swiping.
We'll see.
Yeah. So we had this maze of trees that you had to swipe through and jump around, but it was really tiring, Swiping all the time was very fatiguing. And after going backwards and forwards, should it be tap, should it be swipe?
Yeah.
One day Matt just put in the swiping controls and said, leave it. Don't touch it for 2 days, and then we'll see what happens. And after about 2 hours, I realized that this was actually a really good control system. And I was convinced it was a good change. And because we'd experimented with one tap first, we designed the levels so that there was always this clear path through the middle. And we didn't put any obstacles there at all. And this means that now that most of your actions are tapping, so you're just hopping straight through, and there's no fatigue from swiping because you don't have to do it as often. And this control scheme also allows people to jump into the game right away who might have never played games before.
We didn't have a tutorial in it to even tell people to swipe for quite a long time, and then right near the end we put that in.
Yeah, it was probably about week 10 or so.
Really, right near the end, yep. So my turn to talk business stuff. Everyone's heard of UA, correct? User acquisition. So the concept of user acquisition as a game designer scares the shit out of me. So, in order for your free-to-play game to succeed, you have to be able to craft it so it makes enough money per user that you can afford to advertise. And that's really scary. Like, money in minus money out is your profit. It's not just scary, but it's enormously restrictive on game design, where you're starting, like, every decision you make has to, you got to maximize your revenue. So I'd experimented a lot with cross-promotion and virality in my other titles, particularly Doodle Find. And I'd seen other titles such as Subway Surfers succeed, and I knew for a lot that I don't think they spent any money on advertising at all. I read an article. And so at that point, I knew it was possible to make a game that could get up to the charts and be top grossing without having that UA spend. And so it's sort of like that made it possible in my mind. And I kept that idea in my head for years, and I always wanted to execute on it. And so the 3 things here that we knew we had to get working perfectly were retention, virality, and re-engagement. And I spent at least a third to a half of my time on Crossy Road optimizing these 3 things. Yeah. I mean, retention is having the player play for as long as you can, and they still want to come back tomorrow. And virality is having players share the game with their friends for all number of reasons. And yeah, and we wanted our players to do our advertising for us, essentially. Yep.
So we had this idea to get people to come back day after day and, you know, catch them all. And as you know, this concept worked in, in other games. But it turns out that 50 characters is actually a lot of work. And after the core gameplay was finished, we realized that this would take a lot of time, and I spent the majority of my development time implementing these special characters. And in particular, it was really challenging to find unique sound effects for every single one. You know, I think we spent an entire day debating the best sound for a flea. And we're probably also... A day? Half a day. We're probably the only game with a real capybara sample as well. But it was definitely worth the time, you know.
Yeah, massively
Every
so.
player's got their favourite character that they swear is better than all the rest and has a smaller hitbox.
It also makes it nearly impossible to clone properly.
Without significant effort.
Yep.
So Matt wanted to reflect popular culture with the characters, and Doge was one of the very first special characters to go in. Doggy. So Matt spent a lot of time to develop Doge, and it was one of the first ones that really worked. Yeah. And here's a screenshot of him in action. And this made us laugh so much when we first saw it. And we also had a bug where text wouldn't be removed, so it would just fill up completely full until you couldn't play anymore.
That's true.
And we were both really desperate to share the screenshot on Twitter when we first built it. But we had to keep it under wraps until release. We thought it'd be pretty strong.
That's right. It was a really good sign that people would share this sort of content because we had that instinct ourselves. Yep.
So a major retention killer in a game is when it never feels fun. You know, the last place you want a player to feel bad is when they've just lost a game. So maybe a player feels frustrated at their own skills, or worse, maybe that the game feels unfair for them. And the result is that they'll quit and they won't come back. So instead of making, you know, people upset at the end of the game, we tried to make it funny. And I realized that the end of Crossy Road was truly special when I was showing it to my 87-year-old grandpa for the first time. I showed him the game. He tapped the screen twice and jumped straight into the side of a car. But he just lit up and laughed as hard as I think I've ever seen him laugh. So that was a really, you know, special moment because we crafted that experience. So
you've all seen the end screen banners of Crossy Road where once you die it brings up those opportunities. Well, that's actually the most important system in the game outside of the game itself. As I said, I spent a really long time on that. So at the end of each game, these opportunities pop up, whether it's free gift or, you know, spend your coins to get a character or watch an ad or review the game or character previews. And the system is slowly introduced to the player, but it's actually, you know, quite heavily randomized. And again, this is based on experiments from Doodle Find where I found that if you showed the same thing to the character all the time, you start to the player all the time, your brain tends to ignore it. And so by mixing it up and getting people to react with these systems in a positive way, it was absolutely crucial for retention and virality. And so we've continued to tinker with the system ever since launch. Like, we'll talk a little more a bit about that later, and, you know, adding in new banners and changing the frequency to get the right behavior. So this is a very specific example. So that Rate Us button pops up. And so that banner only pops up after you've played the game for a little while, so once you've collected like 3 or 4 characters, and you've just won a cool character. So you're feeling really good about the game, Rate Us. And what that means is that we have one of the best and most frequently reviewed apps on the App Store. I mean, our reviews are way above anyone else's. And anyone looking to make a Crossy Road clone should look here. So as I said before, retention was the most important thing. And what that meant is that interstitial advertising was out because it takes players out of the game unexpectedly. It's a really good place to leave the game. So the play again button always needed to be in reach. So Disco Zoo was one of the key influences for making Crossy Road, and Owen and Matt from Milkbag were very kind to share us with their first week of sales data when they released Disco Zoo. And that sort of proved to me that rewarded video could work and would be a way to monetize the game even if everything else fell over. And in fact, if Disco Zoo wasn't made and they hadn't shared those numbers, I doubt we would have made Crossy Road, yeah. So the key thing is to ensure, if you're doing this yourself, that the time the player spends watching that ad, the 15 or 30 seconds or whatever it may be, you reward them with something that would take much longer than that. And then they're happy to click and watch and save time, and everyone wins. Because I've seen a lot of apps just completely fail with that. The reward for watching a video is way too little. And of course, if you haven't all played Disco Zoo, please do. So this was a goal we had pretty much plucked from the air, that we wanted to have each dollar we made from in-app purchases earn $1 from advertisements. As it turns out, we were way, way out, but I'll talk more about that later. Yep. Okay, so as I said before, there were two absolutes for Crossy Road. It was going to be free, and we were going to have rewarded video. So we got about 4 to 6 weeks into the game, and we hadn't talked about monetization at all. And for me, I don't really like to buy consumables. I don't like to buy coins in-game. And this was a game that my daughter was really enjoying, and I would never buy coin packs for her because it creates false perception of value. That's just a parent thing. Other people wouldn't necessarily feel the same. But I thought maybe some people would feel the same. So that's something I wanted to try. And well, we sort of both came up with that idea, really. Yeah.
I mean, I came up with similar sort of feelings as that because Crossy Road is actually my first mobile game. And I've been playing a lot of PC games in my spare time. So I've been playing Dota 2 and Heroes of the Storm. And they have this, they stay competitive because you can't pay to win. You can pay for cosmetic items, and yet players are willing to pay for those things. They like to show off their characters and make them look cool. So anecdotally, I've bought items for myself in these games. Oops, sorry. And I feel good about it because I know that I'm supporting the developers and the people who make them.
Yeah. You can skip on. That's the end of it. Yep.
So we decide on this as our model. Every character now costs $1. It's transparent and people know exactly what they're getting when they buy.
We had a 2-hour conversation on the phone, which we just decided is. Yeah, it's a pity we don't have that on record. Most of our other conversations are on Skype, but that one's lost. Yeah. Lost to time. Yep.
And at this point, we also didn't have a company, so we decided to form Hipster Whale. So 50 characters later, 6 weeks of UI work slowly, driving you insane.
Yeah, I got a bit dark there.
We submitted.
Yep.
And Matt took time off to play Warcraft and actually prepare the game for release.
Yeah, all the other stuff that you didn't
I did a game jam. So I did 7-day FPS. I made a game called Game of the Year 420 Blazer versus XXX Illuminati XXX WoW out of 10 # Wrecked Edition montage parody of the game. It did really well, got wide coverage. PewDiePie played it, and it got a few 100,000 downloads.
Yeah. Oh yeah, my turn. Okay, so part 2. So I'm going to try and take you on our roller coaster ride that we experienced after releasing the game on the App Store, and then Amazon, and then Google Play. Now, as I reveal the numbers, I'm going to try and do it bit by bit, so you you kind of see it how we saw it. Yep. Okay, App Store launch. So we released on. We submitted at the end of October, and I had a pretty restless month anticipating the release and putting together all the publicity materials and reaching out to the press. And we were really lucky in that Apple gave us some featuring on the Big Friday, and that gave the game the big snowball push it needed to start to gather players. So I was really, really worried about launching in November. I'd done that once before, and I said I was never going to do it again. So I was not in a good place because we launched so close to Christmas. But this is the revenue chart for the first few weeks. So I don't know how well you can read that. You can see there at the bottom it pulled $600,000 in from the App Store during that period. But the blue bit is the ads and the red bit is in-app purchases. So the lion's share of that was coming from advertising. Now that peak day there, I don't know if you can see that, that's $60,000. Yep. So Andy and I saw that downturn, which is what people would almost always see after they've released a game, and we went, $60,000 peak day, top stuff, champagne. We thought we'd done a really great job.
I thought it was still going up.
Yeah,
Naive.
that's down.
Up.
Then it started to, yeah. based on that curve, you're looking at about a lifetime value of $7 million. So we were very happy at that point. What we didn't expect to see with those last 4 days, all of a sudden it just upturned instead of sinking. And we couldn't figure out why, and then we jumped on Twitter to try and chase down what it was. And we found out it was Monday, and so it was all school kids playing the game, sharing it on the schoolyard, etc. And there was a lot of tweets of sneaky photos of kids in in class. And there's one school actually organised a Crossy Road competition, and the dean of the school won that. Yeah. And yeah, during that we could see a lot of new players through our real-time stats and Twitter chatter. Yeah. And that week, so the 27th of November, PewDiePie did a playthrough. So we were the lead image of that story. So he used our PewDiePug character as the hook. So that wasn't actually intentional. Like with PewDiePug, we were just sort of giving a nod to YouTube culture in the same way that Doe gave a nod to meme culture, and it wasn't it wasn't cynical at all. But it just worked really well, and he did a really great playthrough with a few other games that day. So we were featured by Apple already, and our traffic was already climbing, and so we did have our peak day just afterwards, but I mean, our numbers were already going up. It's pretty hard to attribute that to PewDiePie alone. Yeah. So as you can see, 1-to-1 was way off. That is about 6-to-1 in-app purchases to ads. So Andy and I had to sit down and figure out why our in-app purchases were doing so poorly. I mean, we sort of knew, but it was time to figure it out. So again, we turned to Twitter to see what people were saying about it. And this tweet from Mike Rose summarised it really well, where he didn't, I would have bought the game if it was paid. Okay, well, you're playing it anyway. Why didn't he feel like he could buy a character and then he was contributing to the game? I mean, Crossy Road sort of feels like a premium title in a way because its free-to-play take is quite unusual. There's no coins and stuff like that. And it seemed we confused players a little bit, and they weren't quite sure where they stood on the title. Some people really hated our approach to free-to-play, and some people really loved it. So we wanted to try and do what we could to, tip the balance in our favour. And the other thing was we were giving away characters really fast. Like within the first few hours of playing the game, you can probably get like 15 of them. And there was 50 at the time. So people probably didn't see much value proposition in jumping in that first day to buy a character. So version 1.1.0, we attempted to combat the two problems of paralysis of choice and then the clear value purchase. So the first thing was something I didn't want to do, and that was put a coin doubler in the game. We actually did it in a really fun way by creating a piggy bank character, so it's still sort of tied into the whole system. It was a pretty cool character. We spent a lot of time on that. And that character was $3.99 US, that's right, sorry, $4.99 Australian. And then that's the purchase with clear value, and that was the character to buy if you wanted to support us. Yep.
And the second thing we wanted to tackle was how could players work out what a character actually did before they unlocked it? Yeah. And we were originally hoping this was going to happen through word of mouth, like you talk to your friends and say, hey, the unicorn's really cool. And although people were definitely sharing and talking about the game like this, we needed to make this bond stronger. So we sat down for a few hours and talked about the best way to do this. And
we talked about selling salami.
Yeah, and how a salami sales representative would do this to get you to buy
You walk into a store, there's 50 salamis on the back wall.
They all look the same.
It's too hard.
Yeah.
But if someone's sitting there with 3 salamis in front of them and, maybe this one's tasty, this one's salty.
Try this one.
Yeah, that's right.
And then you taste a bit and you're like, damn, that's some good salami.
Yeah.
And then I want more of that.
And
then you just
they don't let you have any more.
And then you buy it because it's the last one. So that's basically how we decided to do...
You can't fill up on free salami. That's the important thing. Yeah.
Character trials. So this is a screenshot we took when we were mocking up the feature. You're presented with 3 cool characters you can try that you don't already have. And when you choose one, you play for a few games, and then during this period, if you do buy it, you get a bonus free coins when you buy it then and there.
Yeah, a little bit of an opportunity purchase, just to help people buy a character early rather than late. That's all it was.
And it was a pretty simple system in the end.
So this was the effect. So that pink bar grew enormously. from 1 to 6 to 1 to 2. So we now make, and still today, we make, for each dollar we earn from in-app purchases, we make $2 from ads. At the bottom there, you can see at this point, we have now made $2.2 million of total revenue. Yep. Doing pretty well. This is the snapshot from the week after the Piggy Bank was launched, and Piggy Bank quickly became our biggest selling character and makes up 40% of our in-app purchase revenue. Yeah, and the purchases of all the others, of course, went up because of the character trial system. Exactly. Nearly everyone buys characters from that point now.
Yeah, the character trial system is where people buy a character for themselves generally.
Yeah. This bit Andy did. He introduced Polaroid pictures as well, which lets players know that the share button, what it's going to do, and it's going to share a picture. We were seeing a lot of sharing, but we got the feeling that not enough people were trying out that button.
They might not know what it did.
Yeah, and we changed the icon too to make it a bit clearer, and we now get about 1 million clicks on the share buttons each day on iOS. Yep, worked well. Okay, this is where shit gets crazy. Right into Christmas. So Christmas is the most competitive time on the App Store, and as I said, I was really scared. I was really scared of Christmas. It's a dangerous time. Like, premium publishers drop all their inventory to $1 or drop it to free to capitalize on the absolutely ridiculous traffic at this time of year. We were very lucky to be the #1 free game on the App Store in a lot of countries, and that was a real rush. Like, that felt quite amazing. When these numbers came in, we were astounded. I mean, we made $125,000 on Christmas Day alone. Yeah, and that continued all throughout the New Year period. that was a lot of money. And then it surprised me because I would have thought that the advertising would go up, and so really high eCPM. I mean, they were high, but our in-app purchases were really high during this period. Yeah. And the real shock was when the sky-high numbers just dropped off a cliff, and we couldn't figure out why, because it was still...
The analytics stopped working.
Yeah, it was still school holidays for us, but of course you all went back to school, or went back to work and stopped playing, and our retention really dropped off that day as well, yeah. Okay, so we're now at the new year, and the Google Play launch was January 7th. And that was handled by our publishing partners at Yodo One. So they've been kind enough to let us share their data too. So what I've done here is put the Apple at the top and the start of Google Play at the bottom. Google Play itself made $200,000 during that launch week, but you can see the big boost it gave us on the right. Like, our app was starting to flag, and then finally, because I mean, what was really amazing is our app was viral even without Google Play, and so when that came in, finally they could crosstalk and share with one another, and we weren't hurting people's feelings because we weren't supporting the phone or tablet they got for Christmas. Yeah, very, very high dollar days. It's straight back up to near where we got for Christmas, which really surprised us. Yeah, the best is yet to come. So we designed Crossy Road to be easy to update. So if the game ever took off, we would be able to maintain it and update it, like for re-engagement purposes, really. We'd done a little update before with a couple of extra characters, but the Australia Day update, which we released on January 17th, featured 16 new characters, and 5 of those were secret. So that day, this is the iOS only chart, by the way. And you can see the Australia Day update resulted in our biggest ever revenue days. The peaks were dwarfing the numbers we saw at launch and at Christmas.
And those are weekends.
Yeah, they're weekends, if that wasn't obvious. They're exactly 7 days apart. During launch, we saw a 50% increase in sharing on social media as everyone to show the new characters they'd found, and especially the secret characters. Like, everyone was talking about those. So that is, I mean, you can see it up there, that's $225,000 from, that number there is all sources combined. Yep, so it was $170,000 from iOS only, yep. And we had now reached $6.4 million on the App Store.
So another interesting thing we did here in this update was to make ourselves secret characters in the game. So in order to unlock us, you had to play as our favorite characters. And as soon as the update came out, we had people begging us on Twitter, asking us, what's your favorite character? What's your favorite character? And
Yeah.
after they unlock us, when they play as us, a little Twitter thing pops up and says, follow us on Twitter. So this is what my Twitter followers graph looks like. You can pretty clearly see when we added ourselves to the game. And the little bump at the start's the Crossy Road release.
So there's one more thing we wanted to talk about, and that was this story of Amazing Phil and the creation of the emo Goose. So Dan and Phil are a pair of YouTubers and are quite popular in the UK. They have a really good following. And Phil had been tweeting about the game just on his own, and his army of followers were telling us that he was playing the game on his YouTube channel. So I started watching their videos, and they're actually really funny. I really enjoyed it. And so I just happened to reach out to Phil one day on Twitter and said, hey, any requests for characters? And he responded really quickly with a few great requests. I would like to put a streaker in the game, but I don't think Apple would approve a naked Crossy Roader. The emo Goose sounded funny, and so I told Ben about it, and he really liked the idea. So Ben started modelling the emo Goose. And Phil ended up providing the voice of the character, and he incorporated that into one of his shows. That was really cool. And then, so this character arrived the same day as the Australia Day update, and it was the most popular character. So not only was it the single most talked about one on social media, beyond all the secret characters, we sold $20,000 worth of emo geese that week, yeah. We've talked a lot about revenue, but not a lot about daily active users, so we wanted to talk about this quickly. So this is iOS only, and this is from Game Analytics, and shows our daily active users for the first 90 days after launch. And that peak there is 6 million daily active users, right around the time of the Australia Day update. Yep.
That's on the App Store.
I said that.
Oh,
It's App Store only, yep. Okay, so 90 days, here's the summary. This is all captured on exactly 90 days afterwards. So we have 50 million people who downloaded Crossy Road across all platforms. We have spent no money on user acquisition at all. We are 100% organic traffic. We were the #1 free game on the App Store in 39 countries and the #1 app overall in 23 countries. And as of that day, when I took the numbers, the 20th of February, we were still the #1 free game on iPad in USA, UK, Australia, South Korea, Singapore, and many more, like really unprecedented. Like I can't recall an app staying near the top of the chart for that long. And the big one is we now have earned $10 million across App Store, Google Play, and the Amazon platforms. We have a little bit of time for part 3, in which we encourage you to mess with free-to-play a little bit. So these are the things we did wrong, so to speak. So we had no interstitial ads, as I said. Retention was the most important thing. We didn't ever want to interrupt that core loop, ever, except when they get a high score, because that's a good place to share. That's the only place we do it. And whether it's a good or a bad decision, I think it's a good one. Yeah. What's interesting is so many people watch ads. I mean, 64% of our players watch at least one ad every day. Yeah. Another thing we did wrong was?
Our character system, we give away nearly everything for free. So our character system allows us to make new characters and content really quickly, and we can afford to give a lot of it away. So players reward us for this by giving us really nice reviews. And I think in the first 2 weeks of Google Play, we had 1 million 5-star reviews. And when players purchase, they feel good about it.
Yeah. This is an interesting one. You can't buy virtual currency in our game. As I said, it made us feel uncomfortable. Whether or not it was a great idea or not, it's probably, we probably could have earned a lot more, maybe.
Maybe. We have less players.
Probably. Yeah, we probably have less players. And especially, it would make me a bit queasy knowing how many kids are playing our game. It's really popular amongst kids. Yep.
And every character plays the same. So back to that idea of a skill-based game. Almost all other games with multiple characters have something with gameplay advantages. So this means there's usually a best character to play. And in Crossy Road, we wanted to do this differently by making all the characters the same in gameplay. and making it purely about playing the one you love the most. So players can identify with their spirit animal, whether it's the unihorse or the lovely bunny, that's their favourite. And this has been hugely successful, probably one of the most successful parts.
Yes, on Twitter, people were talking about it constantly, about which character was their favourite, and they're trying to get the one, and
tweeting that they want the flea, or something like that.
Constantly, it was a lot of fun, that part. Like, we were really proud about that bit specifically. That was because everyone told us you have to make this character has to be more powerful, or this one needs to collect more money, and the number of requests is
why can't
not just from players,
win?
but from designers. Yeah, we were really adamant about that, and we're glad we stuck to our guns on that one.
There's also no save me button. So once you get hit by a car, that's it, it's over. And the only way to beat your score is to be skilled enough, like back in Flappy Bird. And if we added in-game boosts and a save me button, we'd need some kind of coin pack or way to...
Again, we get a lot of people requesting for this function. Can we please have it? Yeah, and we'd probably, again, that would be a big revenue booster, but it would hurt. Not every game needs to have a save me button, in my opinion, and so we wanted to stand out in that way, and I think that's been really beneficial. Yep, even if we lost money. Yeah, energy systems. So I've been looking into them quite a lot, and I don't hate them as much as other people. They are a really good mechanic for building a habit-forming app. So they play for 5 minutes, take a break, come back later. Works really well in Clash of Clans. It doesn't have to be badly implemented. Sorry, Boom Beach is the one I really like, but it's done well. But of course, there's a lot of people who really hate this system, and with our game, we wanted to provide an alternative to the other choices. And we have a lot of players who, like, Andy's the analytics guy, and there's a lot of people who play for like 8 hours at a stretch.
We probably have, I think we have 10,000 people who have played more than 24 hours or something like that.
Yeah.
Sorry, not in one stretch.
No, but there are some people who play for a really long period of time.
Long sessions,
I mean, the gift system, the free gift, come back later, acts like that energy system and is the retention mechanic. But even though we made it a lot softer than a real energy mechanic, it works fine, A lot of people are scared that if they play the game for too long, they won't want to play it anymore. But I think if your game is compelling, as we say, if the cake tastes this good, you can do away with this system.
You can eat it forever.
Yep. Cake. So, the key reason we're up here is that we wanted you all to see how we did, and to encourage you to mess with free-to-play and innovate with it. I mean, you need retention, you need re-engagement, and you need virality, especially if you're not going to do user acquisition. But there's so much more you can play with. I mean, not many people have the funds to start throwing $60,000 a day at their game to see a chart play similar to what we have. And you can get a bank loan for that once your app's doing well enough, but you just don't have to do it. And I think we're proof of that, and I'm hoping that people follow what we've done. Yeah. So by doing things differently, what it meant is that people were, especially early on, like that first week, they were talking about our game, they were sharing it with their friends, they were putting it onto lists, even if they didn't like it. And that part just worked really just worked in our favour. And I think anyone else innovating in this space will see similar things to what we did. I mean, what it means is that the best part of it all is that our teeny tiny team can take on the App Store giants, not beating them in terms of revenue, but certainly I'm sure we're giving them a fright.
A team, small team.
Yeah, very small team, And just remember that people do love to try new things, And thank you. We've got plenty of time for questions, but if you could fill in your evaluations, that would be really great. Yeah, thank you.
Especially if you liked us.
Yeah, especially the, Hi.
Hi, I just wondered I just wanted to know if you could shed a little bit light on the audio design of it, because I think it's hilarious that a lot of the sounds sound like they were recorded in a garage.
You want to know more about the audio design?
They probably were, yeah.
That was all Andy.
They probably were. So I did all of the audio design on the game,
Yeah.
and I had a lot of fun with it. I got sound packs from various places here and there, and I used free sounds and Creative Commons sounds. But the one of the most interesting sounds was the hitting a car. So I think I spent about half a day looking for the perfect sound effect of flesh into metal, and I bought a sound effect pack of doors opening and closing, just 50 car doors opening and closing, and yeah, I think took a lot of effort to find the right sounds.
It was funny because we didn't factor that in.
Yeah.
We're going, yeah, we're 50 characters, that'll be fine. And then one day we went, what about the sounds for 50 characters? And I just... Okay,
they come from a lot of different sources.
Yeah, it was a scary day. Yeah, that's why it took 12 weeks as opposed to 6.
Oh.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi. My question is about retention. Can you guys share with us what is a good 1-day retention, 7-day retention, and 20?
Yeah, I probably should have. You were asking about retention. I should have put some stats up there. Our day 1 retention is between 65 to 70%. It's actually very, very high, and our day 30 retention is 20
something.
Yeah, very high.
And that's not rolling. That's
that's static. Yep.
Thank you.
Hi guys. Really simple and stupid question, but of all the animals, why did you choose a chicken as the main character?
Why did the chicken cross the road?
Yeah. Yeah.
Thanks.
So in the game you have a retention system that is very, very intense during the first day especially. I received a lot of notifications with these prices. And the question is, did you tune that? Did you work it a little to make sure that it actually increased retention and it's not hurting?
Are you asking, did we tune the retention to try and get it as high as we did?
Yeah, especially the notifications and the frequency of the prices at the beginning.
Sorry, I missed that last part. Sorry.
The frequency of the prices at the beginning.
The
is
frequency
really
of the prices.
Yeah, you get those coins and you start getting characters. Like during the first day, you can get like 4 or 5.
Our retention was completely static. Like we just put a lot of thought into it, and it's pretty much been the same way the whole time.
I don't think we did anything different once the game launched to try and boost it or anything like that.
No, not really. I mean, what were the other tweaks? The other tweaks we did, like we wanted to improve sharing. That was a big one. And we wanted to improve in-app purchases. But I mean, I don't think we could do any better than 70% retention. Maybe we could, but I thought I was happy with that. We didn't need to play with that anymore. Yeah. Sorry, go.
Question about localization.
Yeah.
I very like your Korean name, 길 건너 친구들. How can you make such a good name?
It's an excellent question. So we partnered with, so Yodo One are our Chinese publisher for the Google Play version, and they have teams dedicated to Korean, Japanese, and Chinese localization. So that was actually, that all came from them. Yeah, they did a really great job, and we had a lot of comments saying the Korean localization in particular was very good. Yeah.
So they
Yodo
came
One.
up with that name and said it was relevant.
Yeah, it sounded good to us. Not that I speak Korean.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Nick Dodge of Dodge Vision LLC.
Hi.
I loved your lecture. Thank you. And I just have a question. All organic downloads, how much keyword research did you do? And what do you use besides like Sensor Tower and App Annie, or did you at all?
That's an excellent
That is
question.
a very good question.
Keywords. The question was, what do we do for keywords? Andy is the keyword master.
So I think we downloaded an ebook on how to do
We did.
ASO, and I read through that in
Yeah.
a couple of hours, and then I
Probably
started
read the
with,
same one.
Yeah, I started with Sensor Tower and
The
just
Australian guy, Gabriel. Man, I've forgotten his second name. Sorry.
I looked at a few different places, and just read as much as I could, and then we used Sensor Tower, and we are hooked up to App Annie, but we didn't know what was going to happen. We just put a few keywords in there.
Most of the research into keywords involves finding dead keywords and exploiting them. But
Right,
for
oh,
us, our app was so powerful, we need to
Yeah.
we need to find the popular keywords and jump on those instead. Yeah, but not everyone can play that game.
Yeah.
Just our numbers were so big, we flipped the tables on that.
You wouldn't normally optimize for games, but because of our volume, we can.
Yeah.
For example.
Chicken games,
Chicken,
cat
yeah.
games, monster games. We rank very high on all of those. Yep.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize that. Yep, you
How
go.
do you guys deal with cheaters or prevent people from cheating, like advancing the system clock or something like that?
System clock. So for the
What do
question
we do
was
about
about
cheaters?
question was about cheating, system clocks, and things like that. So for a system clock, we just have a Unity plugin that
Worked
worked really well. We just dropped it in and used that to get the time. So it will, if you change your clock, it will detect that and have the correct time. That works well for iOS and Android.
For leaderboard cheating, there's nothing you can do
Yeah.
other than manually go through and clean them out.
So we're using...
There's a little bit you can do.
We're using
but
Game Center, and there's also some extra data you can submit with that to
We won't
look
do
at
it.
things. Yeah, but really you need a custom solution, I think, to handle that better. And we don't handle that well.
your own leaderboard is really the only way to combat it. Yeah.
Thanks.
Sorry, yep.
Hi.
Hi.
I've always wondered how many players will convert for altruistic reasons. So I'm wondering if gifting characters is on your roadmap.
The question was about conversion rate for altruistic reasons.
Love.
Love. I don't think we can measure love, so... But I think anecdotally, if you look on Twitter or any social media, you can see people say, you know, I wanted to support you guys, so I bought the pig, and they've got a screenshot of the pig, or I really love this character, or, you know, we get a lot of fan tweets and also fan mail. So I think it's just, all we can say is anecdotally, you know, what we read on social media.
People love it.
People love it.
Yeah.
And want more.
Our App Store reviews.
And the reviews.
App Store reviews are a good measure of love.
Yeah, if you look at the App Store reviews,
Yep.
you can have a read of them. Thank you.
Yep.
Hey, I was wondering during the production cycle about how many hours did you guys put in each day on the project?
30. The
How
question
many
was
hours
about-
each day did we put in?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm fairly lazy. That was I did work fairly hard during that period. I
And
mean,
you
there was a
wake up
couple
earlier.
of 16-hour days in there.
Yeah.
That was the most, though.
It was more
We
after
were
release.
working weekends, though.
It got really busy after release when we had a lot of players and needed to do things quickly. But
I like to relax. So I had times when I stepped away. It was crunchy, mainly because we wanted to get back to our other projects, which we still haven't done. Yeah. Man, I got to finish this so I can finish that and that.
But it was also really exciting, you know.
I'm
We
stuck.
liked working on the game and it felt fun, so it wasn't really a chore.
We did want to get it out of the way as
We
quickly
did
as
want to.
possible. Yeah, momentum.
A lot.
Yeah.
We worked a lot.
Yeah. If I lose momentum, the game stops. Yeah, it's not pretty.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Hi, your guys' social virality was just like remarkable, and so I was curious, did you reach out to PewDiePie, or was it just good luck?
Did we contact PewDiePie? Well,
So that game I mentioned before, Game of the Year 420 Blaze It, PewDiePie had played that the week before, so I guess he picked up Crossy Road after seeing that, but it was just luck, you know. We didn't know it was going to appear. It was in some other games there. He was playing a few mobile games at the time, and
I did feel bad though because we put the PewDiePie in there as a nod to him, and then they would not. They tweeted at him.
Yeah, we saw all these tweets at him
Thousands
saying,
of
"Hey,
tweets
your
a day.
pug's in the game,"
We felt
and
terrible.
He probably didn't appreciate that after he'd already
maybe
done
he did
it.
appreciate it. I don't know. He still
More
covered
tweets,
the game.
yeah.
Rather block it.
So no, we didn't email him, but yeah, a lot of other YouTubers covered the game as well for the same reason. So
After
it's fun to play.
of course, after he covered 420 Blaze It, they stayed in contact with you.
Yeah.
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 Cool, thank you.
Thanks.
Yep.
I noticed you don't show ad every time the player die. Is there a minimum amount of time before you show ads?
Sorry, I didn't.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, sorry.
A bit louder.
So I've noticed that you don't show ads, the incentive ads, every time the player die. Is there a timer on the minimum amount of time before you show an ad?
Yes.
So the question was, is there a minimum time before you watch an ad, a video ad?
Yeah, so the ad networks don't like it when you spam them with ads. So we ended up, I think it was 3 or 4 minutes. We just picked an arbitrary number, but that seemed to work. We actually haven't experimented with that much at all.
Yeah.
It might be better if we extend it or shrink it. We've actually done very little A/B testing in that way. We've just been...
We just released.
Yeah, we released YOLO Dev. And then once the money started rolling, we just didn't care anymore. We of course we do look at stuff. I mean, the ad networks show. I think they like to show 10 each day, and after that they'll cut them off, and then we get complaints that people, where's our ads?
Yeah, people email us asking for more ads.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned your other projects a couple of times, but also spoke a bit about how easy it was to extend the game with the updates and stuff. And I was just wondering, with the updates seeming to be fairly successful, are you considering just keeping going with that in favour of your other projects?
So the question was, are we considering keeping the updates going in favour of other projects? We would be crazy not to continue to update Crossy Road, but we don't have to do that ourselves. We've got a programmer on board now who's been helping us out with that. Like, I do really, really, really want to finish my other projects,
But I like adding new characters. That's a lot of fun. And thinking about what they can do. And Ben likes doing all the art.
The business side has really started to...
preparing for conferences and things like that.
Yeah, that was a bad one.
But we do want to keep doing updates as frequently as we can.
Those ad networks are somewhat persistent.
But also delightful.
Yes, they are great.
Thank you.
Is that it? Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.